Today, I'm pushing back. I'm pushing back against RV advice that's out there, whether it came from the RV industry or if it came from online and social media. I'm pushing back against some of this advice that I didn't take, and in the end, I'm glad I didn't take it. So we'll go over what it was and what I did instead, but this one should be quite interesting and fun. So let's buckle up and get right into it. Now, starting off, the first one is the train wreck of flexible tubing inside of RVs. You see the normal PEX and you also see the flexible tubing in RVs, and it's the source of a lot of water leaks. The question is, how do we fix this properly so we can get rid of the leaks in the RV? And it's like the RV industry didn't even know that this little fitting existed. This is a flexible tube fitting with the PEX fitting on the other side. What they typically use is just a plastic fitting that just goes from PEX to PEX, and it's not exactly the same. Our main strategy with the flexible tubing is just to get rid of it whenever possible, get rid of it and just put in PEX, but sometimes that's not always possible. You just need a fitting to be able to put in there to be able to not leak with the flexible tubing and be able to connect to the PEX as well. So that's what this is. You can see that it's extra long on the side for the flex tubing. It's the proper barb fitting over there, and you can actually put 2 clamps on that side, and then the other side is just the PEX. The other thing about the clamps is the clamps are actually a different size. They look extremely similar, but there is a slight different size between those, and you can actually get 2 of these clamps on that flex tubing side rather than just 1. So if you want to fix it right and you're not replacing that tubing, this is definitely the way to go. The advice that I typically see out there is to use the same PEX fitting, put a hose clamp on there and try and tighten it down so that it stops leaking. The best advice is to remove, replace with PEX, or use the right fitting. That's definitely the way to go. Now, this next one, some manufacturers advise against, but it's actually a pretty common thing that a lot of RVers do. What we're talking about are these bug screens. Some manufacturers say not to use these because you could restrict the airflow of the unit. I guess if leaves or things got stuck in here, you could restrict the flow, but I can't see how these screens are actually restricting the flow in and of themselves. But what I have had restrict the flow are the bugs that get in there and the mud daubers, because our Truma AquaGo doesn't have a screen that's a typical size that would go over it. And we've multiple times had to pull the mud daubers out of there, either from the burn chamber or from inside the unit itself, that was causing it not to operate. So I definitely want to get a screen on this. I have a sheet of screening that I want to try and cut to cover those openings because I'm tired of messing with the mud daubers. I'd rather deal with these screens and just give them a visual check to make sure that they're not restricting the flow with anything that's stuck on them, rather than having to dig out what the bugs are doing inside of these units. So that's advice that I'm glad that I didn't take, because one less thing that I've had to worry about pulling the bugs out of this unit. So that one we're getting fixed. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, now for this next one, let's start off with the advice that I got. Years ago, I was told I should write down the make, model, serial number of my RV and the model of each item inside the RV, the toilet, the AC, the fridge, the water pump, the converter, all those things. I should have the model number, so if I need to replace anything, I can match it exactly to that model number. And you don't need to follow that advice. You don't have to be locked into exactly what's inside of your RV. We don't have the same ACs on our RV or water pump or converter. We don't even have a converter on our RV anymore. Our bathroom fixtures we picked up at Home Depot aren't even RV specific. It's pretty obvious to say that we didn't follow that advice. We've done so many upgrades, so many modifications to the RV. I mean, even our table here used to be a love seat right there. Now it's our dining table. RVs are very upgradable, and a lot of the things for RVing, like ACs, can be swapped out. You don't have to be stuck with the original one that came with your RV or that type. Sometimes knowing your make and model can help you out if you're looking for like TV backing or dryer vent location. Things like that can really come in handy, but all the little tiny details, a lot of those really don't matter model to model. They're very interchangeable. A lot like our sponsor today, which is RV Mattress. Because you don't have to be stuck with the mattress that came with your RV. It may not be comfortable, it may not suit your needs. Usually they're the cheapest mattress that RV manufacturers can put in there. So it might be time to upgrade to a mattress that actually fits what you want, to a better, more comfortable mattress. Because they have 4 lines of mattresses, so you could dial it into the exact price, the size, and the space, and the firmness, the softness, whatever you would like that fits into your style for what you want in a mattress for a comfortable night's sleep. Because it's not a one size fits all. They make it really easy. You can have it delivered right to your site. It comes compressed, so it's easy to move into the RV. You unroll it, take the plastic off, and see it take shape. And they take the risk out of it by having that 120-night sleep trial. It has a limited lifetime warranty, free shipping, and if you use our code AllAboutRVs, you can save 30%. So if you've been thinking about upgrading your mattress, click the link down in the description, look through the options, dial it in to exactly what you would like, and get a better night's sleep. So thank you to RV Mattress for sponsoring this video. Let's move on to our next one. Now this next one has some truth to it, but I think misses the mark, and it's never use your awning in the rain and never roll it up wet. I do both of those. As far as using it in the rain, I would never use it in a heavy rain because it can buckle and ruin the awning, but in a light rain, we will often have it out to be able to make the front of the RV usable, and we just pitch it so that way it kicks the water away from the door and away from the RV and gets it off the awning so it doesn't build up on there. The second thing is rolling it up so that it doesn't get wet. That doesn't really hold true because when we unroll our awning, it was raining a few days ago, it was closed, and you're gonna see that there's water in there already. So just keeping it closed so that it doesn't get wet doesn't exactly work. So here's the key for me. There's a couple of things. I often will bring it out on a dry day to make sure that it is dry, but I also do wash it. So that way you don't let some of that mold and things start growing on there. You keep it clean, you wash it, and it's not gonna be that big of a deal. But we use it in the rain and we roll it up when it's wet. We just make sure to unroll it and let it dry. So that's how we handle that one. Okay, now this next one is the advice that is often given for sealants on the outside of the RV. And we actually tried this one years ago and found the pitfalls, but you'll often see the advice out there to use 100% silicone around the doors and windows, and I would just about never use 100% silicone on the exterior of the RV, and here's why. There's no sealant out there that's going to be 100%. There's going to be a failure at some point. The flexibility, the adhesion, something's gonna give away at some point and need to be patched. So because it's not 100%, you can't get silicone to stick to silicone. So you have to completely remove the silicone around the entire item that you're trying to reseal, leaving no residue at all. So what I have found to work better is this, the OSI Quad Max. This one has worked really well. It has a really good stretchability, has really good adhesion, and you're able to touch this up as well. So I wouldn't use silicone on the outside of our RV, but I'll use something like this. As a side note, you can usually get this locally, which is kind of nice. Of course, there's going to be links down in the description to everything that we talked about in this video, but I can't remember if it's Lowe's or Home Depot, but you can pick this up locally, which is nice. Now, this next bit of advice is extremely similar to the other one, and it's the maintenance on the power cord. Usually, the advice is to put dielectric grease on your power cord, cleaning either end of the contacts, so that way you have good contact when plugging your RV into shore power. Dielectric grease is not the product that you want to use. We use Deoxit. It helps get in there and clean it and protect it. The dielectric grease is a non-conductive grease, and it's going to collect dirt and stuff like that, not to be used in this application. So use Deoxit, don't use dielectric grease. Okay, now this next one's definitely gonna be controversial, and it's the way to grease these wheels. Oftentimes you'll hear people say, just pop a couple of covers off here, you get to a Zerk fitting, you jack up the RV, you spin the wheel, you pump the grease in, and you grease your bearings. It sounds really easy, it sounds really quick, but the problem is you don't have any idea if you actually did something good or bad on that wheel as far as greasing it. Some of that grease could have gotten to the bearings, some of it could have blown out the back of the seal, could have gotten on your brakes. You don't really know if you did anything good or bad, and that's the problem. If you feel like your wheels or you're scheduled or you know that it's time to grease your bearings, just take them out and repack them. That way you actually know what's happening on the inside of that hub and you get the grease exactly where it needs to be and the proper amount. The problem with using the Zerk fitting is that it feels like you did a good thing and you can mark that off your list, but you really have no idea how that impacted the inside of the hub. My advice is to not use the Zerk fitting and to pack your bearings with grease the proper way. Okay, now this next grouping I found kind of comical, and it's under the umbrella of don't use AI for RV advice. Here's some of the advice that I got from AI. Ignore resealing your RV roof every single year, only inspect and touch it up as needed every 2 to 3 years. You're gonna end up with a roof leak guaranteed, and you're gonna have water damage on the RV. Number 2, ignore changing your RV tires strictly every 5 years, regardless of tread. Ran them longer based on actual wear condition and mileage. We know that rubber has a life expectancy, and we know going past those 5 years, you're going to be taking a much larger risk of having a blowout. So first off, we have a roof leak. Now we have tires blowing out. Next, we have ignored seal every exterior seam and vent multiple times a year. I don't know who's ripping out the seals around all their stuff to reseal it multiple times a year. If you're not checking the seals on your RV a couple of times a year, not that you have to reseal everything, but if you see a problem, you do need to reseal it. So all of these tips seem somewhat misleading and not that good of tips. Now, the internet is a really good resource for being able to do research, solve problems, find products. All that is great, but AI is definitely not there yet. As a side note, I told you I'd keep you updated on the Connect 10 internet that we're trying. It's been working so well that it went from our Starlink backup to being our primary source of internet for now. So if you're interested in checking out the Connect 10, there's going to be a link down in the description. But let's move on to our next one. Now, this next one, I don't know if it's bad advice or just a waste of time, but it's the battery disconnect in an RV. Usually, the advice is to turn the battery disconnect when you're not using the RV or putting it into storage so that you don't drain the battery. The problem is it doesn't disconnect all the loads. We actually removed our original battery disconnect in here and put a true battery disconnect, especially when we did all the electrical upgrades in the front bay. So that way, when we disconnect the batteries, they're truly disconnected. But that's just my 2 cents. I think it's better to have a true battery disconnect rather than disconnecting and connecting a cable on there. You're more apt to do it if you're using the RV or getting ready to tow just by having a simple switch that you flip, and then not worrying about having a dead battery because not all the loads disconnected when you go to tow your travel trailer or fifth wheel. But I think that's going to do it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope that it helped you out in some way, maybe a piece of advice that can help you in RVing. So anyways, as always, if we don't see you on the road, hopefully we will see you next video. Take care.